The eviction notice came on a Tuesday. Emily Carter sat at her kitchen table, the yellow paper trembling in her hands, while 6-year-old lily-colored princesses in the next room, completely unaware their world was about to shatter. 3 days, that's all they had left before the sheriff would arrive with boxes and change the locks on the only home Lily had ever known. Emily pressed her palms against her eyes until she saw stars. For months since the factory closed. For months of applications, interviews, and polite rejections. For months of watching her savings evaporate like morning dew under a harsh Sunday. She was 32 years old, had worked since she was 16, and somehow she'd ended up here, a single mother about to lose everything. The phone rang, jarring her from her spiral. She almost didn't answer. These days, it was usually bill collectors or automated messages about debt she already knew she couldn't pay. But something made her pick up. "Is this Emily Carter?" The voice was elderly, formal. "Yes," she said, already preparing her rehearsed explanation about payment plans. "My name is Robert Jenkins. I'm an attorney handling the estate of Eleanor Thompson. I understand she was your great-aunt." Emily frowned. "I think so. My mom mentioned her once or twice, but I never met her." "Well, Miss Carter, I'm calling to inform you that Miss Thompson passed away last month, and she's left you something in her will." Emily's heart skipped. "Left me something? What kind of something? A house?" It's been vacant for quite some time. Located in Oak Hollow, about 2 hours north of you. Are you familiar with the area? Oak Hollow. Emily had driven through it once, a forgotten town that looked like it had been frozen in the 1950s and left to decay. "I know it," she said carefully. "Excellent. When can you come to my office to sign the paperwork?" Emily looked at the eviction notice. "How about tomorrow?" That night, she barely slept. A house? Even if it was falling apart, even if it needed work, it was somewhere to go, somewhere. The sheriff couldn't force them out. She packed their few belongings into garbage bags and boxes, trying to make it seem like an adventure when Lily asked why. "We're going on a treasure hunt," Emily told her, forcing a smile. "To a special house that belonged to someone in our family." Lily's eyes lit up. "Like a castle?" "Maybe," Emily said, though she doubted very much it would be anything close to a castle. The next morning, they drove to Mr. Jenkins's office in a building that smelled like old paper and disappointment. He was exactly what Emily expected, thin, grey, and tired-looking with glasses that kept sliding down his nose. "I should warn you," he said, sliding a folder across his desk. "The property has been unoccupied for approximately 15 years. Miss Thompson moved to a nursing home in 2009 and never returned. The house is it's still standing." That was hardly reassuring, but Emily signed the papers anyway. What choice did she have? The drive to Oak Hollow took them through winding mountain roads and past abandoned gas stations with pumps that still showed prices from the 90s. Lily sang songs in the back seat, making up words when she forgot the real ones, while Emily white-knuckled the steering wheel and prayed this house would be their salvation. Oak Hollow was worse than she remembered. Half the storefronts on Main Street were boarded up, and the ones that weren't looked like they should be. A few old men sat outside the hardware store, watching her car with the intensity of people who had nothing else to do. The house sat at the end of Maple Avenue, and Emily's heart sank the moment she saw it. Mr. Jenkins hadn't exaggerated. If anything, he'd been generous. The Victorian-style home might have been beautiful once, with its wraparound porch and detailed trim work, but now it looked like something out of a horror movie. Paint peeled off in sheets, revealing rotted wood beneath. The porch sagged in the middle like a frown. Windows were either broken or so dirty they might as well have been painted black. "Is that our castle?" Lily asked in a small voice. Emily swallowed hard. "It just needs some love, baby. We're going to fix it up real nice." She parked in the overgrown driveway and helped Lily out of her booster seat. The key Mr. Jenkins had given her was old-fashioned, made of brass that had turned green with age. It took 3 tries and a shoulder shove to get the front door open. The smell hit them first. Mildew, dust, and something else Emily couldn't identify. Maybe dead mice. Maybe worse. Wallpaper hung in strips from the walls like dead skin. The hardwood floors were warped and stained. In what must have been the living room, a chandelier hung at a dangerous angle, crystals missing like broken teeth. "Mommy," Lily whispered, pressing close to Emily's leg. "I don't like it here." Emily knelt down and pulled her daughter close. "Remember what I always tell you. We're tough cookies, you and me. We can handle anything together." They spent that first night in the car. Emily told herself it was just until she could air out one room, maybe clean enough to put down their sleeping bags. But the truth was, she was overwhelmed. The house needed more than love. It needed a miracle. The next morning, she left Lily with their elderly neighbor, Mrs. Patel, the only person on the street who'd bothered to introduce herself, though she'd also warned Emily to be careful in that house. Emily didn't ask what she meant. She didn't want to know. Armed with cleaning supplies bought with her last $20, Emily attacked the smallest bedroom first. She swept out years of dust and debris, scrubbed the windows until weak sunlight could filter through, and tried not to think about how much work lay ahead. It was while pulling up a section of water-damaged carpet that she noticed something odd. The floorboards beneath weren't uniform. One section, about 2 foot square, had been replaced. The wood was different, newer, and when she pressed on it, it gave slightly. Emily grabbed a crowbar from the pile of tools she'd found in the basement and worked the boards loose. They came up easier than they should have, revealing a hidden compartment beneath. Her heart pounded as she aimed her flashlight into the darkness. At first, she thought they were just rocks. Clear glittering rocks scattered across the bottom of the compartment like scattered stars. Then her brain caught up with her eyes and she nearly dropped the flashlight. Diamonds, hundreds of them, maybe thousands. Emily sat back on her heels, unable to breathe. She reached down with shaking fingers and picked up one of the larger stones. It was the size of a grape, perfectly clear, catching the light and throwing rainbows across the dingy walls. This couldn't be real. Things like this didn't happen to people like her. She was a factory worker, a single mom who bought generic cereal and counted pennies at the grocery store. She didn't find fortune hidden under floorboards like some kind of fairy tale, but the weight of the stone in her hand was undeniable. The way it caught the light was unmistakable. These were real. Emily's mind raced. Why were they here? Who had hidden them? Did Eleanor Thompson know? The questions tumbled over each other, but one thought rose above them all. She and Lily were saved. No more eviction notices. No more choosing between groceries and electricity. No more lying awake wondering how she'd pay for Lily's school supplies or winter coat. She carefully placed the diamond back and covered the compartment with the loose boards. Her hands shook as she stood. She needed to think. She needed to plan because somehow she knew that finding these diamonds was just the beginning. That night, after Lily was asleep on an air mattress in the cleanest room they could manage, Emily sat by candlelight. The electricity wasn't on yet, and tried to process what had happened. The smart thing would be to call someone. But who? The police? A lawyer? The moment she told anyone, the news would spread. In a town this small, secrets had a way of growing legs and running. She thought about Eleanor Thompson, the great aunt she'd never met. Her mother had mentioned her only a handful of times. Always in harsh tones. Strange woman, she'd said once, kept to herself. Never married. Some said she had secrets. Now Emily understood what kind of secrets. Over the next few days, she developed a routine. Mornings were for cleaning and fixing what she could. Lily helped, turning it into a game. Princess Castle Renovation, she called it. Afternoons, while Lily napped or colored, Emily carefully removed more diamonds from the compartment. She counted them, sorted them by size, tried to estimate their value based on late-night internet searches on her phone. The number she came up with made her dizzy. Conservative estimates put it at over $100 million, maybe more. One stone alone, a pink diamond the size of a walnut, could be worth $20 million, according to what she read about recent auction prices. But with each diamond she led, her anxiety grew. Someone had put these here. Someone had hidden a fortune beneath these floorboards, and there had to be a reason. People didn't just forget about $100 million treasures. The neighbors watched her more closely now. When she went into town for supplies, conversation stopped as she passed. At the grocery store, the clerk, a woman with sharp eyes and a sharper tongue, asked pointed questions about her plans for the old place. "Just fixing it up," Emily said, keeping her voice light, "making it livable for me and my daughter." "That house has been empty a long time," the woman said. "Some say it should stay that way." Emily forced a smile. "Well, I don't believe in letting things go to waste, but the warnings kept coming." Mrs. Patel knocked on her door one evening with a casserole and a worried expression. "My dear," she said, glancing around nervously, "I've lived on this street for 40 years. That house. People have tried to buy it before. They always leave quickly." "Why?" Emily asked. Mrs. Patel pressed her lips together. Eleanor Thompson was a complicated woman. She had connections, business dealings. Some say she wasn't just a recluse. Some say she was hiding from something or someone. That night, Emily CCH checked all the locks and pushed a dresser in front of the bedroom door. She lay awake, listening to every creak and groan of the old house, wondering what she'd gotten herself into. The next morning brought a new problem. Water damage in the kitchen ceiling had finally given way, leaving a hole the size of a dinner plate and debris scattered across the floor. Emily was sweeping it up when she noticed something that made her blood run cold. Footprints in the dust, fresh ones leading from the back door to the living room to the exact spot where she'd found the diamonds. Someone had been in the house. Someone new. Emily grabbed Lily and drove to the library in the next town, needing distance and information. She spent hours researching Eleanor Thompson, piecing together a life from newspaper clippings and public records. Eleanor had been a jewelry broker in the 60s and 70s, traveling between New York and Europe. She'd never married, but had been photographed at numerous high society events, always dripping in jewels. Then in 1978, she disappeared from the social scene entirely, retreating to Oak Hollow. One article caught Emily's attention. It was about a massive jewelry heist in Brussels in 1977. Over $200 million in diamonds stolen, never recovered. The investigation had focused on several suspects, including known associates of various jewelry brokers. Emily stared at the grainy newspaper photo. There in the background of a gala photo dated just 2 months before the heist stood Eleanor Thompson. The pieces clicked together with sickening clarity. Her great-aunt hadn't just been a jewelry broker. She'd been something else entirely. And now Emily was sitting on top of what might be the most famous missing diamonds in history. That evening, as she tucked Lily into bed, her daughter asked, "Mommy, are we safe here?" Emily kissed her forehead, smelling the baby shampoo in her hair. "Of course, we are, baby. I'll always keep you safe." But as she said the words, she wondered if they were true. She'd thought finding the diamonds meant their troubles were over. Now she realized they might just be beginning, because whoever had been in the house would be back, and next time they might not come when no one was home. Emily sat in the darkness of the living room, the loose floorboard at her feet, a fortune in stolen diamonds hidden beneath. She'd wanted to save her daughter from poverty. Instead, she might have put her in more danger than either of them could imagine, but one thing was certain: she wasn't going to run. Not this time. She'd been running her whole life. From bad relationships, from promises of better jobs that never materialized, from a system that seemed designed to keep people like her down. Not anymore. If someone wanted these diamonds, they'd have to go through her. And Emily Carter, single mother from nowhere special, was about to show them exactly how far a desperate mother would go to protect her child and their future. The game had begun. The first sign of trouble came 3 days later. Emily was fixing breakfast when Lily tugged on her sleeve, pointing out the kitchen window. "Mommy, there's a fancy car outside." Emily's stomach dropped. A black Mercedes sat in their driveway, gleaming like a predator in the morning sun. 2 men in dark suits stood beside it. One checking his watch, the other studying the house with calculating eyes. "Lily, go play in your room," Emily said, keeping her voice calm. "Take your cereal with you." "But Mommy, now baby." The knock came as Lily's footsteps faded up the stairs. 3 sharp raps that seemed to echo through the entire house. Emily wiped her hands on her jeans, took a deep breath, and opened the door. The older man smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "Miss Carter, my name is Victor Russo. This is my associate, Mr. Kessler. We represent certain parties with interests in this property." "The property is not for sale," Emily said. Russo's smile widened. "We're not here to buy, Miss Carter. We're here to collect what already belongs to our clients." Emily's hand tightened on the doorframe. "I don't know what you're talking about." "I think you do." Russo stepped closer and Emily caught a whiff of expensive cologne mixed with something else: menace. Eleanor Thompson had certain arrangements with our employers. Arrangements that included collateral stored on these premises. Surely you've done some renovations. Perhaps found some interesting items. I found a lot of rat droppings and rotted wood, if that's what you mean. Russo studied her for a long moment. Then he reached into his jacket and Emily tensed, but he only pulled out a business card. "When you're ready to have an honest conversation, call this number. Time is a factor, Miss Carter. My clients have been patient for many years, but patience has limits." After they left, Emily's hand shook so badly she could barely lock the door. She knew she should have lied better, should have played dumber, but something in Russo's eyes told her. He already knew exactly what she'd found. That afternoon, while Lily was at the library story time, the one normal thing Emily had managed to maintain, she drove to the next county to find a lawyer. She chose based on 3 criteria. Far from Oak Hollow, good reviews, and willing to see her immediately. Joan Mitchell's office smelled like leather and old books. The woman herself was in her 60s with silver hair and eyes that missed nothing. "Let me understand this," Joan said after Emily finished her story. "You inherited a house from a great-aunt you never met. While renovating, you found what you believed to be valuable gems, and now people are showing up claiming they belong to them." Emily nodded. "That's the simple version. There's a complicated version." Emily hesitated, then pulled out her phone. She'd taken photos of some of the diamonds, careful to include nothing that could identify the location. She showed Joan. The lawyer's expression didn't change, but her knuckles whitened as she gripped her desk. "How many?" "A lot." "Define a lot." "Maybe $100 million worth. Maybe more." Joan leaned back in her chair. "And you think these might be connected to your great-aunt's former business?" "I found some newspaper clippings. There was a heist in Brussels in '77. The diamonds were never found." "Jesus Christ." Joan rubbed her temples. "Okay, first things first. These men who came to your house, did they threaten you?" "Not in words, but the threat was there. It always is with people like that." Joan pulled out a legal pad. Here's what we're going to do. First, we file a quiet title action to establish your clear ownership of the property and anything found within it. Second, we document everything, every stone, every interaction, every threat. Third, we need to get you and your daughter somewhere safe. We can't leave. I just got Lily enrolled in school here. She's already been through so much. Miss Carter, Joan interrupted gently. If these are stolen diamonds from a 40-year-old heist, you're not dealing with simple criminals. You're dealing with organized crime. These people have killed for far less than $100 million. That night, Emily installed new deadbolts and a security system she couldn't afford. She moved Lily's bed into her room and kept a baseball bat within reach, but she knew it was just theater. If Russo's people wanted in, a few locks wouldn't stop them. The story broke for days later. Emily never found out who leaked it. Maybe someone at the lawyer's office. Maybe someone who'd seen her researching at the library. Maybe Russo himself, applying pressure. But she woke to find 3 news vans parked outside and her phone ringing off the hook. Hidden fortune found in abandoned house, read the morning paper's headline. The article was vague on details but specific enough. A single mother, an inherited house, a discovery worth millions. By noon, the quiet street was chaos. Reporters knocked constantly. Photographers climbed her fence. Someone flew a drone over the backyard until Emily threw a rock at it. Lily cried, scared and confused by the strangers and noise, but the media was the least of her problems. The letters started arriving that afternoon. The first was from a law firm in Boston claiming their client was Eleanor Thompson's common-law husband and thus entitled to her estate. The second was from a woman who said she was Eleanor's daughter given up for adoption. The third claimed Eleanor had borrowed money and put up the house as collateral. Each one was professionally written. Each one demanded everything. "They're vultures," Joan said during an emergency meeting. "Half these claims won't hold water, but they'll tie us up in court for years. Unless what? Unless you're willing to make deals. Settlement agreements. Give each of them something to go away." Emily thought of Lily's college fund, of the life she could finally give her daughter. "How much?" "If we're talking about $100 million, you could probably make it all go away for $20, $30 million to keep 70. It should have been an easy choice. But something in Emily rebelled. These people were lying, stealing, trying to take what Eleanor had left her, what she'd found. "No," she said. "No deals with liars," Joan sighed. "Then prepare for war." The war came faster than expected. 2 nights later, Emily woke to breaking glass. She grabbed the bat and crept to Lily's side of the bed. Her daughter was still sleeping. Thank God. Another crash from downstairs. Emily's hands shook as she called 911, whispering their address. "They're in my house. Please hurry." She heard footsteps on the stairs. Heavy, deliberate. They weren't trying to be quiet. They wanted her to know they were coming. Emily positioned herself between the door and Lily's bed. Bat raised. The footsteps stopped outside. The door knob turned slowly. Then sirens wailed in the distance and the footsteps retreated. By the time the police arrived, the intruders were gone. They'd ransacked the living room, torn up floorboards seemingly at random, but they hadn't found the hidden compartment. Emily had been smart enough to replace the boards properly, aging them with coffee grounds and dust. "You need to leave," Officer Hayes said, surveying the damage. He was young, earnest, out of his depth. "This is beyond what we can handle here. These people, whoever they are, they're not going to stop." But where could she go? She had no money for hotels, no family to take them in. The diamonds might be worth a fortune, but she couldn't exactly walk into a bank with a bag of possibly stolen gems. The next morning brought unexpected allies. Mrs. Patel arrived with a casserole and an offer. My son has a security company. He'll install cameras, alarms, whatever you need. No charge. I can't accept that. Emily started. You can and you will. The elderly woman's voice was firm. This neighborhood has been dying for years. You're the first person to bring life back to that house. We protect our own. Others followed. Jack from the hardware store dropped off new locks and boards for the windows. Rosa, who ran the diner, brought meals and offered Lily free babysitting. Even some of the reporters tired of the circus started keeping other media away. Oak Hollow was choosing sides and surprisingly many were choosing hers. But Russo wasn't done. He returned a week later with a different approach. This time he brought a briefcase. $5 million, he said, setting it on her porch. Cash. You take it. Sign a simple document saying you found nothing else of value and would disappear forever. Emily stared at the money. $5 million would solve every problem she'd ever had. Lily could go to any school, have any opportunity. They could leave Oak Hollow, start fresh somewhere safe. And if I don't, Russo's friendly mask slipped for just a moment. My employers have been searching for their property for 40 years. They've invested considerable resources. They're not the type to walk away empty-handed. Is that a threat? It's a reality, Miss Carter. You're a smart woman. You know how this ends if you keep fighting. Take the money. Live a comfortable life. Watch your daughter grow up. The implication in that last sentence made her blood run cold. That night, Emily sat in her kitchen surrounded by papers. Legal documents, threatening letters, news clippings about the Brussels heist. Joan had found more information. The diamonds taken in that heist had belonged to several prominent families, including one with extensive ties to organized crime. If these were those diamonds, she wasn't just holding stolen property. She was holding evidence of one of the biggest unsolved crimes in history. Lily came padding in, rubbing sleepy eyes. Mommy, why are you still awake? Emily pulled her daughter onto her lap. Just thinking, baby, about the treasure. Emily had been careful never to tell Lily exactly what she'd found. But children were perceptive. Sort of. Is it like in the stories where the princess finds treasure and lives happily ever after? I don't know yet, sweetheart. The story's not over. Lily snuggled closer. In stories, the princess always wins because she's brave and good. You're brave and good, Mommy. After Lily went back to bed, Emily made her decision. She couldn't run. Running meant looking over her shoulder forever. Meant teaching Lily that bullies always won. But she couldn't fight alone either. She picked up her phone and dialed a number she'd found in her research. It rang 3 times before a gruff voice answered. Detective Hargrove, retired. Mr. Hargrove, my name is Emily Carter. I think I've found the diamonds from the Brussels heist. Silence. Then I've been waiting 40 years for this call. The next morning, Emily woke to find her street quiet. No reporters, no mysterious cars. For a moment, she thought maybe Russo had given up. Then she saw the note slipped under her door. You have 48 hours to reconsider our offer. After that, we'll have to explore other options for recovery. Emily crumpled the note. She was done being afraid. Done letting these people control her life. She had 48 hours to prepare for whatever came next. 48 hours to decide not whether to fight, but how to win. She looked at Lily eating breakfast, humming off-key, completely trusting that her mother would keep her safe. And Emily knew she would. Whatever it took, however dangerous it became, she would protect her daughter and secure their future. The storm was coming. But Emily Carter, single mother from nowhere special, was ready to meet it head-on. Because sometimes the only choice is to stand your ground and dare the world to move you. And Emily had been pushed around long enough. It was time to push back. The war for $145 million in diamonds had begun, and she intended to win. Detective Hargrove arrived at dawn, driving a mud-splattered pickup that had seen better decades. He was 72, built like a linebacker gone to seed, with sharp eyes that belonged to a much younger man. Emily watched from the window as he climbed out, studying her house like he was reading its history in every broken board. "Miss Carter," he said when she opened the door. His voice was gravel and smoke. "Been a long time since someone mentioned Brussels to me." Emily led him to the kitchen where Lily was eating cereal. Hargrove's entire demeanor softened when he saw her. "And who's this young lady?" "I'm Lily," her daughter said proudly. "Are you a policeman?" "Now I'm just an old man who likes solving puzzles." He winked at her. "Your mom found a really big puzzle." After Lily left for school, Emily had finally felt safe enough to let her return. Hargrove got down to business. He spread files across the kitchen table. 40 years of investigation, condensed into faded folders and yellowed photographs. The Brussels heist, he began, was supposed to be impossible. 3 separate security systems, armed guards, motion sensors that were cutting edge for 1977. But someone had inside information. Someone who knew exactly when the guards changed shifts, which sensors could be bypassed, where the real valuables were kept versus the decoys. He pulled out a photograph. Eleanor Thompson at a gala, young and stunning, draped in jewels. Your great-aunt was one of 5 people who had that level of access. The others all had alibis. She didn't. Emily studied the photo. Eleanor's eyes stared back, intelligent and secretive. So, she was involved. I believed so, but I could never prove it. She was careful. Too careful. Then she disappeared into this little town, and my captain told me to drop it. Case went cold. Hargrove's jaw tightened. But I never stopped wondering, never stopped checking on her, waiting for her to make a mistake. And she never did. Not one. Lived quiet, kept to herself, died without spending a penny of that fortune. He looked at Emily until she left it all to you. Emily's phone buzzed. Another text from Russo. 24 hours remaining. Hargrove saw her face. They're pressuring you. She showed him the message. He grunted. Victor Russo. I know that name. Connected to the Ventura family out of Providence. They had investors in some of those diamonds. He leaned back. Here's what you need to understand, Miss Carter. Those diamonds weren't just stolen property. They were symbols, power, respect. The families who lost them lost more than money. They lost face. And in their world, that's worth killing for. Emily's hands wrapped around her coffee mug. So, what do I do legally? You're probably clear. 40 years is beyond any statute of limitations for receiving stolen property. Your lawyer will argue you're a good faith purchaser who inherited an estate, but legally and safely are 2 different things. A knock at the door made them both freeze. Emily peered through the peephole and felt her heart skip. Not Russo, someone unexpected. Father Raphael from St. Teresa stood on her porch. And he wasn't alone. Behind him were a dozen people from town. Mrs. Patel, Jack from the hardware store, Rosa from the diner, even some faces she didn't recognize. We need to talk, Father Raphael said when she opened the door. They filed into her living room, a small army of ordinary people with extraordinary determination in their eyes. Father Raphael, young for a priest with kind eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses, spoke first. Miss Carter, we know about your situation. The whole town does, and we've been talking about how to get rid of them, Emily asked, defensive. About how to protect you. Rosa stepped forward. You've brought something back to Oak Hollow. Hope for the first time in 20 years, people are paying attention to our town. Businesses are interested. Families are moving back. Jack nodded. My son called yesterday. He's been working in Cleveland for 10 years, but he saw the news coverage. He's thinking of coming home, reopening the family business. What does this have to do with Emily? Began everything. Father Raphael interrupted gently. Oak Hollow is dying. Has been for decades. But your story, your courage in standing up to these people, it's woken something up. We won't let them drive you out. Hargrove had been silent, studying the group. Now he spoke. You folks understand what you're saying. The people threatening Miss Carter don't play by rules. They don't care about good intentions. Neither did the coal companies, said a man Emily didn't recognize. But we stood up to them in '83. Shut down the highway for 2 weeks until they agreed to safety reforms. My grandfather faced down the KKK in 1948, Mrs. Patel added quietly. Some fights are worth having. Emily felt tears prick her eyes. These people who had nothing to gain and everything to lose were standing with her? What are you proposing? Father Raphael smiled. Community watch. 24 hours. Nobody gets near this house without going through us first. And we've hired someone. Hired. The front door opened and a woman walked in without knocking. Late 30s, military-bearing eyes that had seen too much. Nora Vance, she said, offering her hand. Private security. Father Raphael called in a favor. Hargrove straightened. Vance. You worked the Donovan case in Boston, among others. She turned to Emily. I specialize in protecting people from other people who think they're untouchable. Father says you've got a problem with some connected folks. You could say that. Nora smiled. It wasn't a pleasant smile. Good. I was getting bored. That night, Emily's house transformed into a fortress. Nora coordinated with Mrs. Patel's son to install cameras covering every angle. Jack boarded up vulnerable windows with steel plates disguised as wood. The community watch schedule went up on Father Raphael's church bulletin board. 2-hour shifts round the clock. Russo's deadline came and went. Emily waited for a retaliation, but none came. Instead, her phone rang at exactly 48 hours. Miss Carter. Russo's voice was carefully controlled. I'm disappointed. I offered you a generous solution. You offered me blood money for property that isn't yours. Isn't it? His laugh was cold. Those diamonds have history. Families who've waited 40 years for justice. You think your small-town protectors can stop what's coming? I think you're scared, Emily said, surprising herself with her steadiness. If you could just take them, you would have. But you can't because the whole world is watching now because I've got legal documentation. Because touching me or my daughter means bringing down more heat than even your employers want. Silence then. You're smarter than I gave you credit for. But smart doesn't mean safe. Miss Carter. This isn't over. He hung up. Hargrove, who'd been listening, nodded approvingly. You're learning, but he's not wrong. They'll try something else. They did, but not what anyone expected. 3 days later, Emily received a package. Inside was a leather journal and a letter in spidery handwriting. If you're reading this, the letter began, then Eleanor left you more than diamonds. She left you the truth. Read the journal. Understand why she did what she did. Then decide a friend. The journal was Eleanor's entries dating back to 1976. Emily sat up all night reading. Lily curled beside her while Nora kept watch. The story that emerged broke Emily's heart. Eleanor hadn't been a thief. She'd been an idealist working in the jewelry trade. She discovered that many of the diamonds she handled were conflict stones mined by enslaved children in Africa, their profits funding warlords and genocide. The Brussels repository had been a major hub for laundering these blood diamonds into the legitimate market. They're killing children. One entry read, 12-year-olds dying in mines so rich women can wear pretty stones. I tried reporting it. I was told to keep quiet or disappear. So, I'm choosing a third option. The heist hadn't been about greed. Eleanor had targeted only the blood diamonds, leaving behind the legitimate stones. She'd planned to expose the whole operation, but the families involved were too powerful. They'd spun the story, claimed everything was stolen, used their connections to make her a fugitive. I could have sold them. The final entry read, God knows I was tempted, but they're covered in blood, so I'll hide them. Maybe someday someone braver than me will know what to do. Emily closed the journal, tears streaming. She looked at her sleeping daughter, at the people keeping watch outside, at the town that had embraced her. She knew what to do. The press conference was Joan's idea. Control the narrative, she said. Tell the truth before they can spin it. So Emily stood before a podium at Oak Hollow Town Hall. Cameras rolling, heart pounding, Lily sat in the front row between Mrs. Patel and Father Raphael, wearing her best dress and a proud smile. 40 years ago, Emily began, my great-aunt Eleanor Thompson participated in taking diamonds from Brussels, but she wasn't a thief. She was a whistleblower who chose the wrong method to expose a terrible truth. She told them everything. The blood diamonds, the cover-up, Eleanor's isolation. She showed portions of the journal, shared the evidence Eleanor had gathered. Then she made her announcement. These diamonds are indeed valuable. Current estimates put them at $145 million, but they're also evidence of crimes against humanity. So, I've made a decision. The room held its breath. In cooperation with international authorities, I'm turning over the diamonds to be used as evidence. Those responsible for the blood diamond trade will finally face justice. Any proceeds from their legal sale will go to 3 places. Reparations for the communities in Africa affected by conflict. Mining, a fund for Oak Hollow's revitalization, and a new foundation. She looked directly at the cameras. The Eleanor Thompson Foundation for Single Mothers. Because no woman should have to choose between feeding her children and keeping a roof over their heads. No mother should face eviction notices alone. No family should be one paycheck away from disaster. The room erupted. Questions flew. But Emily only had eyes for Lily, who was beaming like the sun. Rousseau made one last attempt 2 weeks later, not with threats, but with lawyers. The Ventura family filed suit, claiming ancestral rights to specific stones. Other families followed. The legal battle Joan had predicted began in earnest. But something had changed. International pressure mounted. Human rights organizations got involved. The families found themselves under scrutiny they'd avoided for decades. One by one they withdrew their claims rather than face investigation. It took a year to sort everything out. A year of depositions, court dates, and sleepless nights. But in the end, justice prevailed. The diamonds were sold at a special auction. Their dark history making them oddly more valuable to collectors who wanted to own a piece of history redeemed. Oak Hollow transformed. New businesses opened. The elementary school got rebuilt. The library expanded. Streets were repaved. Houses renovated. Hope restored. But Emily was proudest of the foundation. The first recipient was a woman named Clara. 2 kids fleeing an abusive relationship. The foundation provided housing, job training, child care. Within 6 months, she was managing the new bakery on Main Street. The second was a young mother whose husband had died in Afghanistan. The third, a woman laid off from the same factory where Emily had worked. Each one reminded Emily of herself before that Tuesday when her world collapsed and led her to a fortune under the floorboards. Lily thrived. Private school was an option now, but she chose to stay at Oak Hollow Elementary. "My friends are here," she said simply. She started a junior environmental club focusing on ethical mining practices. At 12, she gave her first speech at a foundation event talking about watching her mother choose courage over comfort. Hargrove became a regular at Sunday dinners. Nora stuck around, opening a security firm that employed local veterans. Father Raphael expanded his community programs. Mrs. Patel's son moved back and started 3 new businesses. Oak Hollow wasn't just surviving. It was thriving. 5 years after that terrifying morning, when Victor Russo first knocked on her door, Emily stood in the renovated Thompson house, now the foundation headquarters. The walls were covered with photos, families helped, businesses opened, lives transformed. Lily, now 11 and fierce like her mother, helped stuff envelopes for the latest fundraiser. "Mom, do you ever regret not keeping the money? We could have been rich." Emily pulled her close. "We are rich, baby. Look around. Look at all the lives we've touched. That's worth more than any diamond." A knock at the door interrupted them. Emily opened it to find a young woman with a toddler on her hip and fear in her eyes. "I heard you help people like me. I just lost my job and my landlord says I have 3 days." Emily's throat tightened, remembering her own eviction notice. The terror, the desperation, she opened the door wider. "Come in. You're safe here. We're going to figure this out together." As she led the woman inside, Emily caught her reflection in the hallway mirror. The scared single mother who'd inherited a crumbling house was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who'd learned that true wealth wasn't about what you kept, but what you gave away. Eleanor Thompson had hidden diamonds under floorboards, waiting for someone brave enough to find them, but she'd hidden something more valuable. A chance for redemption, for justice, for transformation. Emily had found more than fortune in that abandoned house. She'd found purpose, and in helping others rise, she'd discovered her own wings. The Eleanor Thompson Foundation's motto, etched in brass by the front door, said it all. Sometimes the greatest treasure is the chance to lift others up. Emily Carter, who'd once been down to her last $17, had become the richest woman in Oak Hollow. Not in money, though the foundation was well funded, rich in purpose, in community, in the knowledge that she'd taken blood-stained stones and transformed them into hope. The girl who'd almost lost everything had gained the world, and she was just getting started. Because every day somewhere another single mother was opening an eviction notice, and Emily Carter's survivor, fighter, force of nature would make sure she wasn't alone. The diamonds had been Eleanor's secret. But Emily's legacy would be the light she brought to the darkness, one family at a time. In the end, that was worth more than all the diamonds ever mined.